So chopsticks, were you able to adapt to using chopsticks?
Oh, you have to. You have three choices when you go to China. You either walk around with a fork in your pocket, you starve, you choose to starve, or you learn how to eat with the chopsticks. And so I chose to learn how to eat with the chopsticks. So eating with chopsticks is actually a technique. And so I'm going to show you, because I have my chopsticks here. When I order Asian food, I eat it with chopsticks because I feel like that's the only way. It doesn't taste as good anymore without the chopsticks. I know it's in my head, but still. So what you have to do is you have to hold the chopsticks like this.
Mm-hmm.
This finger has to support one of the chopsticks, and this finger has to support the other one, so that you can do this. This is the picking up motion that needs to happen.
Okay.
So if you don't get this technique down, then you can't use the chopsticks. And at first, when I was doing that, everything would fall out. I didn't have enough grip and enough motion in these two fingers to pick it up. And what a Chinese person said to me is that you actually have to develop the muscles in your hand here, inside here, and the muscles in your finger to be able to do this properly. So she said to me, because I had been eating with a knife and fork all my life, the muscles in this part have not been used, because this is what you do with the knife and fork. So she's like, over time, you will build the strength in your hand by doing that over and over. You will build the muscle and you will be able to do it, and you have to practice the technique. And so now I eat with chopsticks like it's commonplace. I even swirl my noodles and I pick up my dumplings and everything, and it feels normal to me because I built the muscle.
Yes.
And I learned the technique.
Yeah, you see, it's about the technique. Wow, that's good. That's great. And so you were there, and what were the aspects of life in China? It's obvious that, you really were able to adapt, and there was a lot that had that impacted you. What aspects of life in China have had the biggest impact on you?
I think one of the things that had the biggest impact on me is the fact that Chinese have a very specific work ethic. They feel like you have to be efficient when you're working. You just have to be efficient when you're working, and then when you're on break, then you're on break. There are no breaks in between your work time unless you absolutely need it. You should stay focused on getting the task done. And then when it's time to relax, you go all out and you relax. So they work from at my university, I was an intern, and our working hours were 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that is because we get 3 hours for lunch. So we work from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. And then we go on lunch to 11 a.m., 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then we go on lunch from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And the university just shuts down from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. You don't transact any business during that time. That's because you get to eat lunch and then you take a nap, like a siesta.
A siesta, right?
Yeah, and then you go back to work until about 6 p.m. And I asked them, you know, why do you do this? We work, we have an hour for lunch, we go back to work, and then we leave work at about 4 or 5. And they said to me, and how do you normally feel? I'm like, I normally feel very sleepy because, you know, ethnic fatigue. And they're like, exactly. So that fatigue that you're feeling, you need to sleep it off to ensure your productivity when you go back to work. So they're big on productivity. And so I really adapted the Chinese work ethic when I was there in my own schoolwork. I told myself I needed to set alarms on my phone for when I would take an official break. And during the rest of the time, I had to stay focused, no picking up. So I would put my phone in airplane mode so I wouldn't receive any messages because I don't want to be distracted. This is work time. And I would just do my work. And when my alarm goes off, I would take a break. And I found that that made me way more efficient. Sometimes I could even will myself to push through the work when I was sleepy or when I was tired, because I told myself that a break was coming up. And when that break got there, I would make the most of that break. Yeah. And also they believe in physical and physical wellness. So they say you shouldn't stay up late at nights. You should sleep by 11 p.m. and you shouldn't sleep until the sun rises, just like what we say here in Guyana, don't let the sun come up on you. That part I have not adopted. I'm not waking up at 6 a.m. But while I was at school, I tried to adapt to sleeping earlier because they believe that if your body isn't getting enough rest, then you won't be able to function to your highest capacity. And again, it's all about productivity. And they also believe in exercising. I kid you not, at about 4 or 5 p.m. in the afternoon, you would see droves of Chinese people walking to a location. And I always wondered, where are these people going? Why are they in lines going to some place? And so I followed them, and they were all going to a playground or a play field, and the universities allow random people to come and exercise on the campus. So you would see them going in droves to exercise at a specific time in the day. Young, old, middle-aged, little children, everybody. They just know that every day they should get a certain amount of exercise. So you would see them doing dancing, or they would be doing aerobic exercise. They would be jogging around the field just in huge groups collectively. It's just ingrained in them. It's a part of their culture that you need to exercise at the end of every day because it's going to make you sleep better and it's going to make you healthier. So those are things that I adopted, that I brought back with me to Guyana. Like, I feel like I need to exercise. And even sometimes I fall off the wagon. I'm like, okay, Elsie, you need to get back onto the wagon. You need to exercise.
Yes, wow, very good. So now, were there any opportunities? I know you were on campus and so on, but were there any opportunities to share any aspects of Guyanese or Caribbean culture with the people you interacted with in China?
I'll tell you about an amazing experience that I had. I went to the expo that is currently going on in Dubai. That expo was held in China in 2019. In 2019. And we had a delegation there, of course. So I just went up casually to stay with them for a few days. And while I was walking around on the compound, I met a woman who told me that she worked for this very popular program called Cultural Express that usually shows on CCTV. And I said to her, oh my gosh, you have to come to the Guyana booth and you have to interview me about Guyana because we have to be on one of the biggest shows in China. And she laughed her head off and she was like, oh, you're so spirited. I'm coming to your booth and I will interview you about Guyana. So she came to the booth And I was able to tell her about our country, about our resources, about our people, about things that are unique to us. And it showed on the national TV station. So the ambassador at that time in Guyana was Ambassador Baini Karan. And he sent me a message. He's like, Elsie, I'm watching Cultural Express and you're on it talking about Guyana. Well done.
Yeah, he was a Guyanese. He was a Guyanese ambassador to China at the time. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And I was like, okay, well, government of Guyana, if you're looking for another ambassador, I'm right here. But I felt so proud to be able to have that experience to share Guyana with the world. And I posted the video to my Facebook page so that Guyanese in Guyana could see that we were featured on Cultural Express. And of course, everyone was excited about that. So that was like one of the biggest experiences that I had to share Guyana with the world. And also there's this thing called the National Diplomats Costume Competition, and Guyana participated in that. So a few of us who are students who were studying in China at the time, the embassy asked us if we wanted to participate, and we're like, of course. So we put on costumes that displayed the various ethnic groups in Guyana, and we played Guyanese music, and we displayed the costumes. We told them about our ethnic makeup, about our culture, and we made front page of the newspapers in China, because a lot of Chinese don't know that we have a Chinese ethnic group. And so they were very shocked at that, and they were very interested to learn about how that came to be. And so they learned a piece of their history about the fact that, you know, persons from China migrated to Guyana all of those years ago. Yeah, and then the third time that I was able to do that was for my university's international parade. So they usually have the flags of all of the students that are going to their country, to their university, and they would give you the flag and ask you to wear your traditional wear and walk in the parade. But guess what? They didn't have the flag of Guyana.
Oh, okay.
But I am always prepared. And they were like, what are you going to do? How are you going to participate in the parade? I was like, have no fear. I will go get my flag and I will be in this parade. So I went to my room and I had brought this huge Guyana flag. And so they were able to string it up on the pole. And so I was able to wave my flag and walk in the international parade so that the other students could know, hey, I'm the only Guyanese here, but there is a Guyanese on campus. So those are my experiences of sharing my culture in China.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you went back home and you finished your studies. I know, before we were talking, before the interview, you actually explained to me that COVID kind of cut short your time in China and you had to finish up back home. But how was it for you reintegrating? You spent 2 years in China and then you going back to Guyana. Was it strange in any way?
It was. I felt like I was having a culture shock again. I had a culture shock when I went to China, and now I'm coming back home and having a culture shock. And I didn't think that was possible. But it did happen because I had gotten used to Chinese efficiency, quote unquote, where everything happened on time. The transportation, if it was leaving at 8 o'clock and you came at 8:01, the train would be gone, and everything was just efficient. They're very strict about things like that. And then I was coming back to Guyana, where I went from getting on a train that moved really quickly and were super efficient to taking a bus. And I felt like I didn't even want to take the bus anymore, but of course taxis are expensive. So I was like, Elsie, you have to readjust your mind that this is where Guyana is right now. It'll get better, sure, but this is where we're at right now. And then also the payment system in China is super efficient. You pay with everything using your phone. And so when I had just gotten back, actually, I forgot that I couldn't pay with things using my phone. So I left my money at home. And I went into a store and picked up these things and then pulled out my phone. And I was like, Oh my gosh, I can't pay for anything using my phone. And the cashier is looking at me like, do you want these things or not? I'm like, I forgot my money at home. And she was so confused, but I
Yeah,
couldn't have that conversation with her. And so I just put back all of the things and I came back home. And luckily I just had a little bit of money that I used to pay the bus. And I was like, oh my gosh, Elsie, like you are behaving like you are a foreigner. You're Guyanese, you've gotta readapt
mm-hmm.
quickly. And so those were the two things. And I would find that every now and again I crave Chinese food, like actual Chinese food from China. I don't know why that happens, but like maybe once a month I will crave something. And one of my favorite dishes in China is hot pot, huo guo. And it is they put a pot in front of you with lots of different seasonings, and they will give you the raw meat and the raw vegetables, and you cook it yourself in those seasonings, and you will just eat it straight from your pot.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my favorite thing to do because I find it fun. I find it fun to cook these things right in front of me and to just have like a variety of things to eat all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And my closest Chinese friend used to take me to eat hot pot every weekend. And so now I find myself craving it. And I actually reached out to some of the Chinese restaurants to ask if they could prepare hot pot for me. And they said yes. But since the pandemic got really bad, they weren't able to do that. But I hope that next year I can have that because I miss it so very much.
Wow. Yeah. So what are some, in addition to you shared so much with us that you really had, I can say you had wonderful experiences. It seems like, those 2 years in China. What are some lessons that you have learned from living abroad?
So the first thing that I learned is it's so important to learn the language if it's a different one, and to learn the culture, because it offers you an experience to connect with the people on a whole different level. Like if you don't want to have an outsider experience and you really want to enjoy your time in that space, then you've got to learn the language and you've got to learn the culture. And they will respect you for it, they will embrace you for it, and you're bound to have a good time. And even after you leave, you will keep those friendships, because I still speak with my Chinese friends all of the time. We make a joke that we speak in Manglish, which is half Mandarin, half English, because neither of us are fluent in the other language. And I feel like those connections would not have been possible if I didn't make the effort to learn the language and to learn the culture.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, when you're living in somebody else's space, you have to respect their rules and you have to adhere to them. So a lot of persons have said, oh, China is strict. They don't appreciate not being able to do certain things. But I feel like their society was built on the rules that they have. And it's because of those rules why they've been able to have a safe society. For example, we can walk at 1 a.m. in the morning and we feel safe. And I'm thinking that, were it not for some of the strict rules that they have, that would not have been possible. So for me, it was important for me to respect the rules in China and to adhere to them. If something was prohibited, then I was not going to do it. And it's the same that I would want from persons coming to Guyana. I would want them to respect the rules that we have here as well. So that's an important lesson. And also, always read instructions. Oh my gosh, I got lost. And I got trapped in the subway station because I did not read the directions properly. So I was trying to find the exit, and the word for exit in Chinese is chukou, and there are symbols for it. And then the word for emergency exit has chuko at the end, but at the beginning it's like Jinji chuko. So like there are two other characters in the front of it. I just saw the latter two characters and I'm like, oh, okay, this is the exit. And I walked through, and the door is designed to only work in one direction.
Because it's the emergency exit.
Exactly. So you can go through it, but you can't come back. So when I went through it, I realized that I was in darkness, and I'm like, okay, turn around. And I'm pushing the door and I couldn't get out. And on the ground in the subway station, there's no signal. So you can't use your phone to call anyone. So I started to panic, and I'm like, okay, Elsie, just keep walking. I kept walking, and then I walked up some stairs, and then I was on the outside, but I was like enclosed by like a huge hedge, because apparently that's the assembly point.
Right, for if there's an emergency, that's where, okay.
And so you're supposed to come through there and get rescued in that assembly point. And I ended up there because I didn't read. I just, glossed over the directions. And so I was trying to call for help, and nobody could like really hear me, because it's not a area that people will frequent, because it's supposed to be safe. And luckily I saw some persons who are not from China standing over the road having a smoke. And so I shouted at them, hey, friends, hello. And they're looking at me like, what are you doing in there? And they came over, and these men had come to Beijing for a conference. They were Europeans. And so they lifted me
over the
hedge. And that's how I got rescued. So I'm like, okay, if you're living in a different place, it's so important to read the instructions, read the signs, because
carefully.
You don't want to have to be lifted over a hedge.
Wow. Oh my. So, well, you have experiences to remember for a long time and to share with others. So, Elsie, what are your final thoughts on the importance of appreciating other cultures as we wrap up?
I feel like it makes for a more enriching life if you're able to visit another place, learn about another culture, experience it for yourself. And if you can learn from somebody else's experience, it just makes for a more enriching life. It makes you a more open-minded person, because now when I interact with Chinese in Guyana, I usually have good experiences with them, because I know how to interact with them. I know the things that are considered taboo in Chinese culture. For example, they don't like noise. They don't like you to raise your voice when you're talking to them. And as Guyanese, we are very generally loud people, very expressive, but that scares them. They don't know if you're arguing with them. They can't tell. And so I've learned that, okay, you have to approach Chinese calmly. And so now when I go to the Chinese supermarkets, for example, or if I meet a Chinese person in a professional setting, I know how to approach them. I have conversations with them. I greet them in Mandarin, and they always say, "Oh my gosh, you speak Mandarin! It's so nice to meet you." They're excited, and I get to build relationships with them like that, because I've learned about their culture. And so I think it just makes for a more enriching life. And so I would encourage anyone, if you have the opportunity to live in another place, definitely go for it, because you'll never be the same after that. You'll be more enlightened, more open-minded. You'll be in this exclusive club of people who are considered versed in the art of interacting with people from other cultures. And I feel like it just opens a lot of other doors for you. And so I think it's a great thing to do. Don't sleep on this, people. Don't sleep on living in other places. It's totally worth it.
Yes, exactly. I really agree with you. Not just the little tourist experience. Tourist experience is fine, but more than that, a deeper experience with another culture is really what we're looking for. So beautifully said, Elsie. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And to the viewers, thank you for watching. And come again, we're going to see you soon as we meet new people and learn from their experiences in our next episode of Our Culture to the World. Bye, Elsie. Thank you.
Bye. Sai Chien.
Sai Chien. What does that mean?
That's goodbye in Mandarin.
Okay, good. So I just learned Mandarin. Sai Chien.